The Galactic Monster Response Unit's emergency alarm system had been screaming for 6 hours straight, and Commander Zillax was watching their newest specialist, assigned through what had to be the most catastrophic bureaucratic error in Council history, walk into the Void Breacher containment zone armed with a spray bottle and a kitchen towel. "Extraction team, status," Zillax barked into his communicator, mandibles clicking frantically. "Sir, she won't respond to evacuation protocols. She's cleaning the observation window." "Cleaning?" Zillax's 3 eyes bulged as he stared at the security feed. The human female, according to her file one Emma Johnson, was indeed spraying something on the reinforced viewing panel and wiping it down with circular motions. Behind that panel, barely 3 meters away, crouched a Class 9 reality eater, a creature that had consumed 2 entire star systems before they'd managed to contain it. "Get her out of there!" According to YouTube analytics, 99.6% of viewers are not subscribed. That's a huge number. By subscribing the channel that is completely free, you'll help support the channel and never miss fresh content. "We tried, sir," she said, and I quote, "Hold on, I've almost got this streak out." Council Representative Kaeldra's voice cut through the command channel, sharp with panic. "Commander, if that containment fails, we lose this entire sector. Why is there a human in proximity to our most dangerous asset?" Zillax pulled up the personnel file with trembling claws. "There's been a mistake. She applied for a position in custodial services. The automated system assigned her to Monster Suppression Division." "How is that even possible?" "The application form has a drop-down menu. Custodial services and crisis-level suppression both start with C. Zillax wanted to crawl into a hole and die. She reported for duty this morning. No one checked because we've been understaffed for 3 cycles. On the screen, Emma finished with the window and turned toward the containment cell door. She was actually walking toward the Void Breacher. "Stop her!" Kaeldra shrieked. "Sir, she's overriding the containment locks." "How? Those require quantum-level biometric clearance." She used her maintenance master key, the one we issue to janitorial staff. Nobody programmed restrictions because we never thought. The cell door slid open. Emma Johnson walked into a room with a creature that had literally eaten reality itself, carrying a spray bottle labeled multi-surface cleaner and humming something under her breath. The Void Breacher's 17 eyes fixed on her. Space-time rippled around its form. Scientists had calculated it could unmake her existence in 0.03 seconds. Emma looked up at it, squinted, and said, "Oh, wow, you're a big guy, aren't you?" Zillax felt his respiratory system forget how to function. The Void Breacher tilted what approximated a head. Reality bent. Alarms reached new pitches of hysteria. Emma put one hand on her hip. "Okay, so, I'm guessing nobody's actually cleaned in here for a while, huh? Place smells like a gym locker mixed with a dumpster fire." She wrinkled her nose. "When's the last time you ate something that wasn't like the fundamental fabric of existence?" "She's talking to it," Kaeldra whispered in horror. "She's having a conversation with the apocalypse." "Get me the Supreme Hunter. Now," Zillax's voice cracked. "And someone tell me if humans have some kind of death wish we weren't informed about." Supreme Hunter Kalthus arrived within 15 minutes, having broken 7 speed regulations and possibly the sound barrier. He stormed into the command center carrying enough weaponry to sterilize a small moon, his scales bristling with combat readiness. "Status!" he roared. "Unchanged," Zillax said weakly, gesturing at the screen. "She's been in there for 20 minutes. 20. Kalthus looked at the feed and his battle-hardened composure shattered. Is she dusting the containment restraints?" Emma was, in fact, running her towel along the massive crystalline chains designed to hold the Void Breacher if containment failed. She'd propped her spray bottle on one of the creature's lower appendages, the appendage that could literally unweave molecular bonds. The Void Breacher hadn't moved. "I'm going in," Kalthus declared, charging his plasma decimator. "Wait!" Zillax grabbed his arm. If you discharge that weapon in there, you could rupture containment completely. We'd lose the entire facility. If we don't extract that human, we lose her and potentially trigger the breacher. It's clearly agitated. Look at the reality distortion readings. Zilax checked his instruments. Actually, they're decreasing. Everyone in the command center froze. That's impossible, Kaeldra breathed. Void breachers don't calm down. They escalate until containment fails or we're forced to execute terminal protocols. On screen, Emma had moved on to sweeping the floor. The Void Breacher watched her with what could only be described as curiosity. Commander. One of the technicians looked up, face pale. The creature's aggression indicators have dropped by 40%. That can't be right. Check your equipment. Already did, sir, 3 times. The breacher is measurably less hostile than when the human entered. Emma paused in her sweeping, looking up at the massive creature. You know what? You seem pretty chill for something they're calling a monster. Bit of a rude name, honestly. You got an actual name, big guy. The Void Breacher made a sound like reality grinding against itself. Emma nodded seriously. Cool, cool. That's a mouthful, though. Mind if I call you Reggie? You look like a Reggie. She's naming it, Kaltas said flatly. The human is assigning designation to a Class 9 extinction event. I need to make a call, Kaeldra said, her voice hollow. This goes to the Galactic Monster Authority. Now. Director Vexia of the Galactic Monster Authority materialized via emergency transport 30 minutes later, her chitinous form radiating authority and barely contained fury. She'd been pulled from a summit with the High Council itself. Explain, she demanded, why I received a priority alpha alert claiming a human has somehow infiltrated our most secure containment facility and is currently... She glanced at the live feed. Apparently doing meal prep with a Void Breacher? Emma had indeed pulled out a sandwich from her bag and was unwrapping it. The Void Breacher leaned closer, its reality-bending aura flickering with what scanners could only interpret as interest. It was a clerical error, Zilax said miserably. The human applied for janitorial work, got assigned here instead. And no one noticed? She reported to orientation, received standard safety briefings, got issued her equipment, and she thought the briefings were metaphorical. Zilax pulled up the incident report. Her notes from the training session include monsters, smack, difficult cleaning challenges, and Class 9 threat level, the really bad stains. Vexia stared at him. She thought we were speaking figuratively. Humans apparently use monster to describe minor inconveniences, Kaeldra added weakly. Traffic jams, difficult customers, stubborn stains. On screen, Emma had broken off a piece of her sandwich. She held it up toward the Void Breacher. You hungry? This is turkey and Swiss. Well, turkey? Pretty sure this protein is actually synthesized, but it tastes close enough. Want some? Every alarm in the facility should have been screaming. Every containment protocol should have activated. The Void Breacher should have unmade her atomic structure. Instead, one of its appendages extended slowly, carefully, and took the sandwich piece. The creature ate it. The command center fell into stunned silence. In 10,000 years of galactic record-keeping, Vexia whispered, no one has ever fed a Void Breacher. Because they eat reality, Kael'thas protested. They don't have digestive systems. They shouldn't be able to process matter. Apparently, Zilax said faintly, they can. Emma smiled up at the creature. Good, right? Better than entropy and cosmic void, I bet. You guys been feeding him at all. Feeding? Vexia's voice could have cut through hull plating. Get me in communication with that human. Immediately. A technician patched through a comm link. Emma touched her ear where they'd placed the standard translator bud during orientation. Hello? Miss Johnson, Vexia used her most authoritative tone. I am Director Vexia of the Galactic Monster Authority. You are in violation of approximately 47 safety protocols and need to evacuate that containment cell immediately. Oh, hey, yeah, sorry about the protocols thing. Emma scratched her head sheepishly. Look, I know I'm probably not doing the procedures right, first aid jitters and all, but I gotta ask, when was the last time anyone actually interacted with Reggie here beyond, like, threat assessment? Reggie? The void breacher. Seems rude to keep calling him a breacher when he's clearly just stressed out. Stressed? Vexia's antennae vibrated with disbelief. That creature has destroyed multiple worlds. Yeah, and I'm betting that's because nobody bothered to figure out why. Emma gestured at the massive entity. Look at him. Classic signs of environmental stress and understimulation. Probably hasn't had proper enrichment in years. Maybe never. Plus this containment cell? She wrinkled her nose. Sterile, cold, no comfortable resting areas. It's like keeping a dog in a concrete box and wondering why it's aggressive. It's not a dog, it's a living creature that you've been treating like a bomb instead of an animal. Yeah, I'm getting that. Emma's voice carried an edge now. I worked at an animal shelter back on Earth before I applied for this gig. You know what we learned real fast? Aggression usually means fear, pain, or stress. Sometimes all three. She looked up at the void breacher, at Reggie, with genuine sympathy. When's the last time anyone checked if he was in pain? The command center sat in absolute silence. We don't have protocols for that, Vexia admitted quietly. Well, there's your problem. Emma turned back to Reggie, studying him with a practiced eye. Big guy, can you open your mouth? Yeah, like that. Oh, yikes. What? What's happening? He's got something stuck in his teeth. Well, the reality-bending equivalent of teeth. Looks like crystallized dark matter, maybe? Emma pulled out her spray bottle. This is just water and vinegar, okay, Reggie? Gonna hurt for a second, but it'll help dissolve that buildup. Ready. She sprayed the affected area. The void breacher flinched, reality itself shuddered, and then the creature's entire form relaxed. The reality distortions that had been creating havoc for months simply stopped. Reggie made a sound like a satisfied groan. There we go. Better, right? Emma patted one of his appendages. Probably been hurting for ages, huh? Poor thing. Vexia slowly sat down, her legs apparently forgetting how to support her weight. She solved a Class 9 containment crisis with vinegar and basic dental hygiene. Director, one of the technicians called out, voice shaking. We're getting reports from other facilities. Someone suggested checking if their contained entities might also be experiencing distress. The Phantom Collective in Sector 7? They found a lodged feeding mechanism, the Shadow Devourer in Quadrant 12. Environmental temperature was 50 degrees too high for their biology. How? Vexia's voice came out as barely a whisper. How did we miss this? Because you've been treating them like weapons instead of wildlife, Emma said, not unkindly. The comm channel carried her voice clearly now. It's not your fault. You didn't know what you didn't know. But yeah, I'm guessing a lot of your monster problems are just behavioral issues that nobody's addressed. Kael'thas had set down his decimator. He looked at his hands that had triggered terminal protocols on 17 Class 6 or higher threats during his career, and something in his expression broke. We've been executing them. When containment fails, when aggression escalates beyond control, we terminate. How many? Emma asked quietly. Hundreds, maybe thousands over the centuries. And how many, Emma pressed gently, might have just needed help? No one answered. Director Vexia stood in the now calm containment cell, watching Emma Johnson demonstrate her impossible techniques on 3 additional crisis-level entities that had been transported to the facility. The human moved between them with easy confidence, reading body language that Galactic experts had insisted was unreadable, establishing boundaries that military protocols claimed were unenforceable. The Void Breacher, Reggie, wasn't trying to destroy reality, Emma explained, checking one of the creature's appendages for injuries. He was trying to build something, like a nest. Your containment fields kept disrupting his attempts, which stressed him out, which made him more destructive. Classic negative feedback loop. And the Shadow Collective? Vexia asked, still trying to process this paradigm-shattering information. Territorial protection. Emma moved to the writhing mass of darkness that had been classified as a level 8 predator. They're communal creatures, probably a family unit. When you kept moving them between facilities, separating them, they interpreted it as an attack on their young. That's why they kept phasing through containment. They were trying to escape to protect their kids. The Shadow Collective, which had killed 14 containment specialists during transfer operations, was currently allowing Emma to run a handheld scanner over its form. It almost looked peaceful. The Reality Eater? That one had Vexia genuinely baffled. It had consumed an entire research station. Massive infected tooth. I'm guessing the pain was so severe it was lashing out at anything nearby. The consumption you observed? It was probably trying to numb the pain by overloading its sensory input with matter absorption. Emma had used some kind of human dental tool, she'd called it a water flosser, to clean the affected area. The Reality Eater was now curled up, apparently napping. He'll need actual veterinary care from someone who understands non-standard biology, but the acute crisis is over. Vexia pulled up her datapad, accessing files that went back millennia. Our entire Monster Division protocol is based on containment and elimination. We've been operating under the assumption that these entities are inherently hostile, fundamentally incompatible with galactic civilization. They're animals, Emma said simply. Weird, physics-breaking, sometimes terrifying animals, but still animals. They have needs, emotions, stress responses. You can't just lock them up and expect them not to. Freak out. She paused, then grinned. Well, you can, but then you get exactly what you got, a galaxy full of containment breaches and emergency protocols. You're saying, Kael'thas spoke up from where he'd been observing, his weapons still holstered, that we've been approaching this wrong for our entire recorded history. Pretty much, yeah, Emma shrugged. But hey, better late than never, right? At least you didn't just shoot everything that moved. Some planets back in Earth's history did that. Didn't work out great for biodiversity. Vexia made a decision that would reshape galactic policy for generations. Miss Johnson, I'm formally offering you a position as Chief Behavioral Specialist for the Galactic Monster Authority. Your assignment to Monster Suppression Division was an error, but it may have been the most fortunate mistake in Council history. Emma blinked. I was really just looking for something with decent healthcare and maybe weekends off. Full benefits, housing stipend, and whatever support staff you require. Name your terms. Emma looked around at the now calm creatures, at the monitoring equipment that had finally stopped screaming warnings, at the assembled aliens who were watching her with something approaching awe. She chuckled. You know what? This is way more interesting than cleaning floors. Sure, I'm in, but I'm gonna need a proper budget. These guys need enrichment items, proper nutrition plans, habitat modifications, and someone's gotta train your staff on behavioral assessment basics. Whatever you need, Vexia promised. I'll be restructuring the entire division based on your methods. Cool. Emma pulled out her datapad, the one she'd been using to take notes during her orientation, and started typing. First priority. Stop calling them monsters. Seriously, the language matters. They're entities, or maybe just use their actual species names if you have them. Second, environmental enrichment standards for each species type. Third, we need to establish a proper assessment protocol before containment. Fourth. Miss Johnson, Kaeldra interrupted gently. Perhaps start with the Void Breacher, with Reggie. Show us how to properly care for one entity, and we can expand from there. Emma brightened. Oh, yeah, that makes sense. Okay, so Reggie needs a bigger space with environmental complexity. Platforms at different heights, maybe some material he can manipulate for nest building. Temperature control is important. I'm betting the cold environment in here was making him sluggish, which contributed to his irritability. Feeding schedule should be twice daily, but not reality matter. That's probably like feeding a cat nothing but treats. We need to figure out his actual nutritional requirements. She continued talking, building out a comprehensive care plan on the fly, and Vexia realized something profound. They hadn't just gained a specialist, they'd gained someone who fundamentally understood something the entire galaxy had missed. These creatures weren't aberrations to be contained or destroyed. They were just scared, stressed, and in need of someone who could see past their terrifying exteriors to recognize their pain. 6 months later, Emma Johnson stood in the newly renovated Galactic Entity Care Center, formerly Monster Response Unit, and reviewed her datapad with satisfaction. Monster incidents were down 94% across all monitored sectors. The behavioral specialist training program she'd developed had graduated its first class of 50 students. Former hunters were learning enrichment techniques instead of elimination protocols. Commander Zillax approached, mandibles clicking in what she'd learned to recognize as contentment. "The Council wants to award you the Stellar Service Medal, you know." "For accidentally ending up in the right job," Emma laughed. "I literally clicked the wrong drop-down menu." "For revolutionizing our understanding of non-standard biology and preventing countless deaths, both entity and personnel." Zillax looked at her seriously. "I almost had you incinerated that first day. I thought you were going to trigger a containment failure that would destroy the facility." "To be fair, I was absolutely terrified at first," Emma admitted, "when I realized those weren't metaphorical monsters, that they were actual reality-bending creatures. Nearly peed myself. But then I saw how scared they were, and training just kicked in." She shrugged. "Scared animals need patience and understanding, not weapons and cages." "The paradigm you've introduced will take years to fully implement," Vexia added, joining them. "We've discovered hundreds of entities across the galaxy that were incorrectly classified as hostile when they were simply distressed or ill. We're establishing rehabilitation centers on 17 worlds." "And the entities that are genuinely dangerous?" Emma asked. "Because let's be real, sometimes animals are just aggressive by nature." "Assessment first, as you taught us," Vexia confirmed. "If behavioral intervention fails, if an entity truly cannot coexist with galactic civilization despite our best efforts, then containment remains an option. But terminal protocols are now a last resort, not a first response. The difference is already saving lives." An alert chimed on Emma's datapad. She glanced at it and groaned. "New case just came in. Class 8 designation, reports of spatial distortions and mass hysteria. They're calling it a dimensional terror." "Do you need support?" Zillax asked immediately. "Nah, I've got this." Emma grabbed her supply bag, now considerably more sophisticated than her original spray bottle and towel, but she still kept both for sentimental reasons. Dimensional distortions usually mean either severe anxiety or disorientation, probably just need some space, clear boundaries, and maybe a snack. She headed toward the transport bay, already pulling up literature on dimensional entities and their typical stress indicators. Behind her, Keltas, who'd transitioned from Supreme Hunter to Senior Behavioral Coordinator, called out, "Emma, the readings say this one's particularly unstable." "Yeah," Emma called back without turning. "They always say that. It'll be fine." She stepped onto the transport pad, and in the moment before she materialized at the crisis site, she smiled. Her mom had told her the custodial job application would lead nowhere, that she was wasting her time applying to off-world positions. Turns out, accidentally becoming the galaxy's first monster therapist was exactly where she was supposed to be, even if she still sometimes had nightmares about almost cleaning windows next to a creature that could eat reality. The transport flash took her, and she emerged on a research station where panicked scientists were evacuating. The dimensional terror was apparently trapped in the main laboratory, warping space-time so severely that sensors couldn't get accurate readings. Emma walked past the evacuation crews, past the armed security, past the emergency containment team. She walked up to the laboratory door and knocked politely. "Hey there, I'm Emma. I'm here to help. Mind if I come in?" The spatial distortions paused, just for a moment. Emma took that as a yes and entered. Behind her, the security chief whispered to his team, "Is she always like this?" Commander Zillax, who transported in as backup, clicked his mandibles in what might have been a laugh. "You have no idea. Last week she taught a Star Eater basic communication protocols. It now helps with stellar cartography." "That's impossible?" "Yes. That's what we thought too." Zillax watched the laboratory monitors as Emma's vital signs remained stable as the spatial distortions began to decrease. But apparently, when you give someone the wrong job assignment, sometimes they become exactly what the galaxy needed all along. Inside the lab, Emma was sitting cross-legged on the floor, talking to a being of pure dimensional energy about personal space and proper integration techniques. The dimensional terror was listening. Within an hour, it was calm. Within 2, it was actually communicating through a translation matrix Emma jury-rigged from lab equipment. By the time the crisis was officially resolved, the entity had been reclassified as a dimensional refugee and was in the process of being relocated to a suitable habitat with proper support services. Emma emerged from the lab, stretched, and checked her watch. "Okay, so that took longer than expected. Anyone know if the cafeteria here has decent coffee? I'm gonna need some serious caffeine before I write up this report." The assembled response team just stared at her. She grinned. "What? You guys act like you've never seen someone have a productive conversation with the fabric of space-time before." Zillax decided then and there that humans were either the bravest species in the galaxy or the most casually reckless. Possibly both. Emma Johnson, former animal shelter worker, accidental monster division assignment, currently the most successful entity behavioral specialist in recorded history, grabbed her coffee and headed back to file her incident report. Just another Tuesday saving the galaxy, one misunderstood creature at a time. And somewhere in the bureaucratic depths of the Galactic Employment Commission, the drop-down menu that had started it all was quietly updated. Custodial services and crisis-level suppression were moved to opposite ends of the list. Better late than never.